very well save your life.
What is up? Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. If you can, I want to welcome you back to another episode. Today we're going to talk about betrayal, mental health, and murder. That's why we titled today's live stream Betrayed by Brothers in Arms. And this is the Matthew McLaughlin story. There's Matthew there. So we'll give everybody an opportunity to kind of show up to the live stream. This is a live event. So we just kind of roll with the punches and take it as it comes. All right, guys, let's go to the chat roles here. Rule number 1, stay focused. Avoid becoming a distraction to the conversation. Rule number 2, no personal attacks. Respect all participants and refrain from insults or targeting individuals. Rule number 3, no trigger trolling. Do not engage in or provoke disruptive behavior or arguments. And no mention of other channels. Keep the discussion within the current chat and avoid referencing other channels, please. You get one warning. So I do want to welcome you back. I want to welcome all my new subscribers and shout out to the lurkers even. Welcome, everybody. Pitbull Mom, She Warrior, Jerry, Tambi, and Louise. Welcome in, everyone. Okay, so let's jump right in. Matthew McLaughlin was a 25-year-old U.S. Army veteran from West Virginia who was reported missing on July 31st, 2025, and later found to have been murdered and dismembered by his 2 roommates. Rainor Joyner, 23. This guy right here. I mean, he just looks like a killer. And David Degroat, 22. This guy. Both originally from Georgia. The crime took place in Tres Piedras, New Mexico, and has been widely reported as gruesome and premeditated. Right, let's see a little bit of background on Matthew. Matthew McLaughlin was an Army veteran who had served at Fort Benning, Georgia. All 3 did, alongside Joyner and Degroat. After being honorably discharged, he relocated from Virginia to Tres Piedras, New Mexico, with his 2 former Army comrades and his puppy to start a new life. Friends and family described him as a sweet, kind person who was always smiling and willing to help others. He loved his family and pets deeply, and his murder was described as something that doesn't make sense to those who knew him. McLaughlin was reported missing on July 31st, 2025, after he stopped communicating with his family around July 26th. His mother, Rebecca McLaughlin, and other family members, including his sister-in-law, Kayla McLaughlin, traveled to Taos to search for him, prompting the Taos County Sheriff's Office to investigate. All right, let's get into these 2 knuckleheads here. So these guys all served in the military together. These guys were on what is known as ETSing. So they were just getting ready to be discharged. But for whatever reason, they couldn't wait. They left. Who knows what they did? They ended up here. I think Rainor Joyner must be from New Mexico, right there in the Taos area. I think he's the kind of the anchor for the group there. I think they might be living at one of his properties. But as far as their history, there's not a lot out there. I don't know exactly where all these guys are from. Matthew is reported to be coming from Virginia, but David is definitely from California. I know that for a fact. And Rainor is most likely from right where the murders happened in Tres Piedras, New Mexico. Okay, let's talk about Rainor Joyner. He was 23. Originally from Tres Piedras, New Mexico, Joyner served in the same Army unit as McLaughlin and Degroat at Fort Benning. He had an active warrant for desertion from the Army at the time of his arrest. And through my investigation, I found out they basically left in April and were charged in May. But Matt, he hung out long enough to where he could be discharged properly. He wants to receive his benefits. He seemed to be the only responsible person out of the group. He had a job nearby. As a matter of fact, that's how they ambushed him. He walked like a mile, like almost 2 miles every day to and from work, supporting these guys. So he seemed like the only normal person, right? He's the one that's doing everything the way you're supposed to do it. He has an honorable discharge. These two knuckleheads don't. So I could see there being some kind of jealousy, right? Like him living under the same roof, and he wants to talk about his pride and his military and the good times, and these idiots got dishonorably discharged. It's got to be embarrassing, something he can hold over their head. Joyner confessed to shooting McLaughlin with an AR-style rifle in the chest and then twice in the head with a pistol on July 25th, 2025, in a planned ambush. He admitted to dismembering McLaughlin's body over subsequent days and disposing of the remains in plastic bags along U.S. Highway 64 near Tres Piedras, about 80 miles north of Santa Fe. I guess we can pull that up now. So through my investigation, I found the exact location of both dump sites and the home that they were staying at. Let's take a look. So I want you to keep in mind what we've learned about geoprofiling as well here when looking at this map. So Matthew's Facebook has him listed as living in Taos, which is really nearby, not very far. It's over here. Beautiful place. I've been to Taos. Actually planning a vacation there in the near future. But they lived here, just outside of Tres Piedras. Right here. Basically a shanty. Here's the house right here. So all three of them under this one roof, basically living off grid. Now, I don't know if Joyner lived here previously. I don't know, but this is where they ended up after leaving the military. So they all went on one deployment. I'm not quite sure how that works, but when they were done and getting ready to, and what they call it is ETSing, the end of their first enlistment. So Matthew waited it out. He did everything the right way. But David and Rainor, they left early. They got charged with desertion. You got a generator. So he dismembered Matthew, put him in 2 separate bags. Does that remind you guys of another case here in Arizona? And I don't know if he did this on purpose or not, but it looks like he picked 2 flood zones to dispose of his bags. See the culverts there running under the highway? So this is where he picked as one of the dump sites here, one of 2. Right. So he must have been hoping that when the floodwaters came through, it would carry the body out way out into the plains. So I don't know if he did that by design or not. So here's number 2. Right here near mile marker 231. Why do I always see these numbers? 231. But once again, dumped in a flood area right down here. I think that's exactly what happened, Tambi. Here, let me read on here. So he confessed to shooting McLaughlin, and this is Rainor, with an AR-style rifle in the chest and then twice in the head with a pistol. So he shot him from afar, ambushed him, and then walked up and executed him. He admitted to dismembering McLaughlin's body over subsequent days and disposing of the remains in plastic bags along U.S. Highway 64, about 80 miles north of Santa Fe. Now, here's the motive, Tambi. Joyner claimed he killed McLaughlin because he was speaking ill of him, using drugs, and bringing strangers into their shared residence, which Joyner claimed ownership of. Court documents reveal he had given McLaughlin chance after chance to address these issues, but felt killing him was not a hard decision. Joyner expressed no remorse, reportedly telling deputies, "I did it. I fucking killed him and I don't fucking regret it," with a blank face and no emotions. Joyner also allegedly threatened to kill Degroat if he did not assist in the murder or spoke about it. This is Degroat after being arrested in court. Okay, so David Degroat, 22, he's originally from California. I looked him up, and also that's what it says on his Facebook too, right? Fallbrook, California. Degroat also served with McLaughlin and Joyner at Fort Benning and had active warrant for desertion. He was arrested alongside Joyner on August 17th, 2025, after a search warrant was executed at their shared residence. Degroat admitted to helping to lure McLaughlin into the ambush by assisting him with groceries on a dirt road near their home where Joyner shot him. He also confessed to holding open bags while Joyner placed McLaughlin's dismembered body parts inside. Degroat claimed Joyner had confided in him multiple times about wanting to kill McLaughlin and that he had previously talked Joyner out of it. Degroat provided a written confession detailing the premeditated nature of the killing, including Joyner's motives and the timeline of events. So here, let's point something out. So Matthew has a history with Taos. I don't know why. I don't know if he moved there before going to the military. I don't know if he moved from Virginia to Taos and then all these guys joined the military together as buddies and then came back to this location here that belonged to Rainor. But they all lived in this little house here. But Matthew worked over here in town, if you can call it a town, called the Chili Line Depot. This place looks cute. It looks pretty nice. It looks quaint. Yeah, this is extremely awful. Matthew is reported by everybody as being a kind and sweet person. Yeah, it has to rain there. If you just look at the terrain, Pitbull, you can just tell that it floods there from time to time. Maybe they get hit with like a monsoon like we do here in Arizona. Cute little place. It's like a restaurant. They have groceries there. It's like the only place within walking distance, really. And Matthew found it. He was working there, I think, for about 3 months. And he was supporting everybody. He was working. He was bringing home meals for the guys. There was absolutely no reason to kill him. And if Rainer's complaining about him bringing people over, it was probably women. You know, we got this guy who was honorably discharged. He's just not a loser. He's like, hey, I can live off grid over here and still have a job and keep steady relationships with women. Like, yeah, they're probably jealous. They're wondering how he could do all that with PTSD and things like that. See on the top here, it says good food and then groceries. So he was walking home from work, this location right here, and he didn't know that they were planning to set him up. So it looks like you can rent rooms here too. Free Wi-Fi, free breakfast. There's a couple hotel rooms here you can rent. I'm not sure how he got home. Here, I drew these up a little bit earlier. So he could have taken the highway, you know, the easy route, but it also looks like there's a path. A little bit of a shortcut. But I think that's less likely, right? So there's somewhat of a path that cuts through here. He could have easily taken this. But most likely went down the 285, took a left on the 64, crossed the bridge, and then cut across through here. There's also a road right here that kind of sneaks through, kind of cuts through diagonally. This could be where he was ambushed. So David Degroat went out to meet Matthew somewhere on one of these roads right here, because Matthew's kind enough to bring them home groceries and food for them, for the whole house, right? After working his ass off. And we're going to read 2 articles here in a minute where his coworkers describe him as a hard worker, very nice guy, and somebody that was taking care of these other degenerates. So while Matthew and David were walking down one of these roads here back home, you had Rainor hiding along the roadside here. And once they passed by, he fired with his rifle and killed Matthew. Walked up to him and shot him twice, double tap with the pistol. And I guarantee you, Raynor's not going to be carrying Matthew. David had to help him, in my opinion. What's up, Goat Dog? That shot probably was sexually attracted to Matthew, and he turned him down, so he shot him. Because if he can't have him, no one can. I don't know. He said something. He made a weird comment. He said, I fucked him. But I think what he meant was with the gun. That was his quote. So I don't know what that means. But there are no signs that there was a relationship. It just seemed like Matthew was a normal guy, right? These guys are trying to be like off the grid, doing who knows what. Like, what are they even doing with their time? And here comes Matthew. He's got a job. He's like, yeah, I found a job in this fucking ghost town right here. You know, it's this awesome place. He's bringing home friends and girls and things like that. And these guys are just sitting there in the corner like, what the hell? I thought we were living off the grid. I mean, honestly, look at this. It doesn't get more off grid than that, guys. Let's take a look at one of their closest neighbor. I mean, this is like some Hills Have Eyes shit. Fucking Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah, I mean, they are 100% off grid. And they're wanted anyway. That's probably why they're hiding out here. They're wanted from the law. Like, oh, I know where we can hide. I have we own property in Tres Piedras. Let's go live there. And then Matthew living in Taos, they call him over like, hey, yeah, we have a spot over here. So the murder occurred on July 25th, 2025, less than half a mile from the trio's shared home. Joyner, with Degroat's assistant, lured McLaughlin into an ambush as he walked home with groceries. Joyner shot McLaughlin with a rifle, then moved closer and shot him twice in the head with a pistol. Over the following days, Joyner dismembered McLaughlin's body, including his limbs and head, and placed the parts in plastic bags. These were disposed of at multiple locations along U.S. Highway 64. Joyner led deputies to these sites, where the remains were recovered and identified as McLaughlin's by the Office of Medical Investigator. Evidence found at the scene included a clump of brown hair, a rock stained with blood, and clothing believed to belong to McLaughlin, including a blood-stained brown shirt. Honestly, Pitbull, he does seem like a sweet kid. Here, let me pull up some more photos of the kid. Double fisting it. He's got the baby blues. And this is something more recent. It's more of the off-grid look. Okay, so something stood out to me. I was asking myself, okay, 2 dump sites, right? And I kept trying to ask myself, what is that reminding me of? It reminds me of the Emily Pike case. I'm like, okay, well, they're kind of far from Arizona, but really they're not, because you can drive to Taos from Mesa, Arizona, like within 8 hours, I think. So this happened up here. The Emily Pike incident happened somewhere down over here. But I was like, man, that is so similar. So I tried to find a connection. And if anything, I found evidence that they weren't connected. But that doesn't mean that they're not connected. I mean, I don't really have an idea of what their whereabouts were when Emily Pike went missing. But this is exactly what happened to her, right? She was dismembered, and they still haven't found the second bag. Um, so if it is connected, I think it's safe to assume that the second bag would be found somewhere similar in distance, right? So he put bag number 1 near this culvert, didn't drive much further to a second culvert, and then dumped that second bag there. They haven't found the second bag for Emily. So I was like, that's very interesting. I wonder if there's any connection. And that's when I found this with David, that he's from Fallbrook, California. The only problem is the dates don't match up. Emily Pike went missing January 27th. These guys went AWOL in April. But who knows? Did they take a vacation? I know that they get they're allowed to take a holiday block. So here, let me pull up another map. Oh, there it is, Fort Benning. There it is. Okay, so Fort Benning is way over here. These guys were all enlisted together and they all lived under the same roof. For whatever reason, they all ended up here, which is basically Taos, right? Why does that keep coming out? Damn it. Stop. There we go. So somehow they ended up here. But if they were traveling from there to where David was staying in Fallbrook, they go through Mesa, Arizona. So it would take some investigating to find out if they possibly went through Mesa around that time. So Emily Pike went missing around January 27th, but she could have been a runaway for a week or so, before somebody killed her, dismembered her, and put her in 2 separate trash bags across the highway. Now that's the MO of these 2 knuckleheads. But the timing doesn't align. So I verified today with public affairs that they went AWOL in April and weren't charged until May. Emily would have already been murdered by then. But also we have the Mount Ord murders that, also could have been these guys. Just really depends. Were they out in this area? Is it likely that they traveled? So you'd have to find out either through friends or family of David's in Fallbrook, California, to find out if they took any vacations through here for whatever reason. But eerily similar, don't you think? Or is that just common with murders? People being dismembered and separated into two separate bags, kind of dividing the weight. That's why I always thought that it was a female that killed Emily Pike, because a man could have easily have carried her, but for whatever reason, they needed to divide the weight in two. Okay, so I got two videos we're going to play. So this video is really for those who are online. There's a lot of people talking about the Emily Pike case, the Pandora Jules Rude and Evan Clark case being tied in with these guys. But I'm just letting all of you out there who are interested in that angle or that theory that I've been doing my research on that over the last couple of days. And these guys didn't go AWOL until April. So, right, they were with the military. They were at Fort Benning. They didn't leave that area until April, right? Emily Pike went missing in January. Now, it is a lot more interesting if you're trying to tie them to Pandora and Evan Clark's case. But you have to remember, they fit the MO and the profile of the guy that we're looking for, right? Maybe military history, a survivalist, somebody living out on Mount Ord with the military history, suffering from PTSD or something like that. Well, these guys fit that bill. But the only reason we're even looking at them at all is because of the MO that we're finding in Matthew's case, with the way they chose to get rid of him, so to speak, right? The dismemberment, the bags, the two separate dump sites in trash bags, exactly like Emily Pike. I mean, down to the T. So they match that way. So then we look at, people were already trying to connect Pandora and Evan's case to Emily. So I think it is important not to just dismiss these guys because they didn't go AWOL until April. Who knows what they were doing in between? Is it possible that they went on vacation? I mean, it's just interesting. Did they commit the Mount Ord murder of Pandora and Evan? And then later on, as they were watching the coverage of their crime, they're witnessing people connecting the Emily Pike case. Is that where Rainor got the idea for the dismemberment, the two separate bags, and to do it along the highway? While observing media coverage of his own crime, he can't help but observe them connecting it to the Emily Pike case. So, it could have a weird connection that way. But it is very interesting, his MO, what he did with Matthew, the disposal, and how it matches perfectly with what happened with Emily. It was just something that I couldn't ignore. And a lot of people can't. So this live stream is really for that group of folks. Let's see. Let me pull this up.
An Army veteran found dismembered along the highway.
The case has the Taos County Sheriff's Office in shock. News 13's Madison Connor sat down with the undersheriff.
Something out of a horror movie as a weeks-long missing persons case comes to a devastating close.
I think all of us were in a bit of a shock. We kind of had an idea of where this case may go based on where things were leading us. But I think the end result, that turn, was unexpected. We didn't expect that at all.
Taos County Sheriff's Office says 25-year-old Matthew McLaughlin was first reported missing at the end of July by his mother.
So the mom called, kind of gave some background with some of the friends' information as to who he was hanging around with. The deputies started doing, interviews, following up.
The investigation took deputies to a home near Tres Piedras where McLaughlin was staying with two Army buddies, 23-year-old Rainor Joyner and 22-year-old David Degroat. The men originally said they didn't know where McLaughlin was.
Weren't getting a whole lot of traction, but as they continued to dig and continued to do more interviews, bits and pieces more and more started to come out. So they started to notice and find inconsistencies in the stories, which led them to start digging into those areas.
But it wasn't until late last night, as deputies conducted a search warrant at that home, that Undersheriff Gabriel Ortiz found out the horrible truth of what happened.
As they were talking, one of the deputies was talking with the individual, one of the suspects, and he ended up just coming out and saying everything that happened. It was kind of a shock. I think all of us were in shock because he sat there and he basically came out and said, I shot him. And then I drug him over here, and then over a period of time, I dismembered him.
Joyner told deputies he did all of this with the help of Degroat. Both men have active arrest warrants for desertion from the Army. Ortiz says Joyner took deputies to multiple locations across Taos County, starting with where he shot McLaughlin as he walked home with groceries, less than half a mile from their home.
So there's the main location, the house of where the incident unfolded and took place, and then there was two locations to where we were able to find different pieces of evidence.
Ortiz says so far they've located multiple trash bags in two spots along Highway 64 with body parts, something he's never seen before.
We don't know to the exactly what body parts are there. That's will be probably determined tomorrow with the autopsy with the Office of the Medical Investigator.
Madison Connor, KRQE News 13.
Last month in northern New Mexico, now two suspects have admitted to his horrific murder. A criminal complaint states Rainor Joyner and David Degroat lured Matthew McLaughlin into an ambush near Tres Piedras when Joyner shot him with an assault rifle and killed him. Investigators say the men admitted to dismembering his remains and disposing of them in two separate areas along State Highway 64. The Taos County Sheriff says both Joyner and Degroat had warrants for desertion from the Army. Our own Madison Connor is interviewing the Taos County Undersheriff this afternoon. She is in Taos. We'll have more tonight.
So there's a little bit more information. I do have a couple articles here. Let's pull those up. Before we do that, so let's see. So yes, you can be considered. This is what I asked Google. Let's see. Yes, you can be considered absent without leave, AWOL, even close to your expiration term of service, which is ETS, right? And they were, Rainor and David were ETSing, is what they call it. As AWOL is a criminal offense under the Uniform Code of Military Justice and is treated as an illegal absence from military duty. Going AWOL can result in severe consequences such as negative discharge, forfeiture of benefits, and potential criminal penalties. And it does not necessarily end with your ETS. It is crucial to resolve any issues such as pay or administrative problems with your chain of command or military attorney to avoid this status. Why ETS doesn't prevent AWOL. You are still subject to military orders and legal obligations until your ETS is fully processed and you are properly discharged. If you are AWOL close to your ETS, you will likely receive a negative discharge, such as an other than honorable discharge, and potentially impact your benefit and future employment. So Matthew, I believe, received an honorable discharge. They did not. All right, so I went ahead and found 2 articles from 2 local reporters who were kind of boots on the ground and able to talk with law enforcement and some family members face to face. These articles seem to contain the most details of what actually happened. Right, this was from Olivia Lewis. I actually tried to contact her this morning with no success. Title: Army Deserters Held Without Bond and Veteran Murder Case by Olivia, published August 20th. 2 men accused in the murder of a U.S. Army veteran whose remains were scattered along U.S. 64 near Tres Piedras were charged with multiple felonies in Taos Magistrate Court Tuesday, August 19th, including first-degree murder. The Taos County Sheriff's Office arrested Rainor Joyner and David Degroat last weekend in connection with the murder of their roommate, Matthew McLaughlin. Sheriff Steve Mira said Joyner admitted to shooting McLaughlin, an Army veteran who moved to the area from Virginia earlier this year. I find this information really strange. Because if you look at Matthew's, the last time he accessed his Facebook was in 2023. But it still has him listed as lives in Taos, New Mexico. But all the information that I find online has him coming out of Virginia. So is he originally from Virginia, moved to Taos, became friends with Rainor Joyner and David, and then joined the military? Is that what happened? So if anybody's watching and knows the answers to those questions, please let me know. During a search of the home he shared with McLaughlin Sunday, August 17th, Joyner implicated their other roommate, Degroat, in the crime, police said. According to the affidavit of arrest, Joyner told police, "I did it." See, and this is, it was reported on another, from another news source that he said, "I did it. I fucked him. And I don't fucking regret it." So what I think he means is he killed him, not that he sexually assaulted him. But I mean, you never know. What the hell's going on, right? Joyner was charged with multiple felonies during this arraignment, including first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, aggravated battery, assault with intent to commit a violent felony, and tampering with evidence. Let's put this back up. So that was him in court. Degroat was charged with first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, that's Degroat up on the screen, and tampering with evidence, all felonies. Both men are being held without bond. Your plea will be taken before the district court because they are felony charges, Taos Magistrate Judge Ernest Ortega told Degroat on Tuesday. McLaughlin moved to Tres Piedras in April with Joyner and Degroat, all of whom served in the same unit at Fort Benning in Georgia. Deputies later learned that Joyner and Degroat had active warrants for desertion. McLaughlin was last seen July 26th, was reported missing to Taos County Sheriff's Office on July 31st by his family, his mother. So it sounds like he went missing. The mom tried to contact his roommates, and they were like playing dumb. Like, "Oh, we haven't seen him." "Well, you haven't seen him. Why haven't you reported him missing? Like, you guys are acting strange." So then she called down here to the Taos County Sheriff's Office. It's so hard to wrap your brain around how 2 best friends who were in the Army together and lived together could do this, Deb Graves, owner of the Chili Line Depot, told Taos News. "Matt supported David for all the months that Matt worked for us. Joyner grew angry with McLaughlin for speaking ill of him, bringing random people to the residence, and the use of narcotics at the residence." Right? That's probably a lie, honestly. He was probably the one using narcotics, according to the criminal complaint. According to the affidavit, Degroat told police he tried to convince Joyner not to kill McLaughlin several times. During questioning, David advised that 2 weeks before the confrontation, Joyner had been speaking to him about killing Matthew, states the affidavit. David advised that he had convinced Rainor not to kill Matthew several times. A few days later, Rainor created a plan to kill Matthew, and he threatened that he would kill David if he did not participate in the murder. Nonetheless, Joyner and Degroat allegedly carried out the plan to ambush McLaughlin once he returned home from getting groceries. As McLaughlin walked the long road to their house, Degroat accompanied him, speaking loudly so Joyner knew where they were. See how evil that is? He's like, hey, we're over here. Like, get ready. We're coming. You know, get ready to kill our friend. We're almost there. Degroat said Joyner shot McLaughlin 3 times in the chest with an AR-15. Joyner allegedly then ran up to McLaughlin, stood over him, then shot him again through the jaw and temple with a Beretta 92 FS pistol. Degroat told police that Joyner threatened to hurt him if he didn't help hide McLaughlin's dismembered body. He also alleges Joyner coached him what to say to police during questioning. When police asked if Joyner felt any remorse for his actions, Joyner's face allegedly remained stoic. He answered he didn't, and that his father told him he'd grow up loving to kill. His father? What does that mean? He answered he didn't, and that his father told him he'd grow up loving to kill. Does that mean his father is a killer? Did he learn putting people in 2 bags, dismembering them and putting them in 2 separate bags from his father? Could we tie his father to another crime? A little far-fetched, but you never know. A lot of these cases, when you find out how they're connected and what connects them, it seems like, yeah, it's very far-fetched, but ends up being true. Joyner allegedly next told police, and I did, I loved it, and it was easy. All right, guys, that is it. That's going to do it for today's live stream. We are going live a little bit later tonight. Here, let me pull that flyer up. Or thumbnail, whatever you want to call it. Robin Westman, the Minnesota church shooter. Man, this shit gave me chills. Let's put that up here. So this will probably be a little bit later in the day. I have it scheduled for in about 2 hours or in about an hour, but I'm going to be rescheduling this for later in the day. It's crazy right here. So don't miss it. And I will see you guys a little bit later in the evening. Take care of yourselves.
I rest my case.